Ever get that glitch in the system feeling? Like, what if reality isn't what we think it is?
Yeah, like we're all plugged into some giant simulation.
Exactly. It sounds like we're back in the Matrix, but today's deep dive is about way more than just Hollywood.
Right on. We're going deep into the simulation hypothesis. We're talking about the actual tech, the head-scratching philosophy.
And even how this ties into spiritual stuff.
It's wild, and we've got some solid ground to cover this.
We do. We're tapping into Rizwan Virk's book, The Simulation Hypothesis. He lays out the tech we'd need to make a truly believable simulation.
And he knows what he's talking about. Plus, we're throwing in Free Guy. Not just for laughs.
Oh, it's a fun one.
It is. But the movie gets into some deep stuff about what it means to be simulated, the ethics of it all.
Totally. So, no red pills or blue pills here, but we are going to unpack some big brain-twisting questions.
Bring it on.
All right, so Virk says we need 10 tech stages to really nail a convincing simulation.
10 stages.
Yeah. And get this, his big aha moment, it hit him while playing VR ping pong. Even the basic VR back then was enough to trick his brain.
It's insane how fast things are changing. Virk's roadmap probably sounded like sci-fi a while back.
Right.
But now, look around. Oculus, Apple's Vision Pro dropping. Heck, AI in Minecraft is building its own little worlds.
It's mind-blowing, and that's just the beginning of Virk's stages. First up, nailing realistic 3D.
Which, like you said, we're seeing with VR and crazy good game design these days.
Exactly. Then stages 2 and 3, it's all about interacting with those worlds and making the AI inside them smarter and smarter.
And scarily realistic.
Yeah.
It's getting harder to tell what's real.
No kidding. And Virk talks about how esports are being recreated in VR now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, players are training in these virtual spaces that are like exact copies of real-world competitions.
That reminds me of something that always blows my mind. Near-death experiences.
Whoa. Okay, how so?
People who've had NDEs, they often describe this super vivid life review. Like a hyper-realistic replay of their lives.
Like they're watching a super advanced VR highlight reel.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if what Virk's talking about with esports, maybe that's a glimpse of where this tech is headed.
Man, that's giving me chills. So we're building these crazy, realistic virtual worlds, but what about us?
Right. Like, are we just code running in the background?
Are we the NPCs just there to make the world feel real? Or are we the main characters in this whole simulation thing?
Well, Virk talks about different flavors of simulation. He dives into that whole NPC versus RPG thing.
Okay, break that down for me. What's the difference?
So the NPC route, that's basically saying we might be super advanced AI following our programming.
Okay, so not much free will there.
Right. But the RPG flavor, that's where it gets juicy. That's the idea that we're more like players controlling avatars.
So we do have choices to make, paths we can choose.
Exactly. Think about it. Choosing your character, embarking on a quest.
And even in an RPG, you've got game masters, developers, right? So who's holding the controller if this is all a simulation?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Virk, he leans towards the idea of a soul.
A soul. Like something beyond our physical selves.
Yeah, a non-physical entity that chooses to incarnate, to be born into this reality for a specific reason. Like we're picking a character in a quest line.
So the soul thing, it's picking a life path, challenges and all, kind of like choosing a difficulty setting in a game.
It's a cool way to think about it. And it ties into Virk's own story, you know?
Yep.
After his heart surgery, he had this intense experience, almost like an NDE.
Yeah, he talked about meeting these Tibetan monks during his recovery. It sounded super vivid. Like, did he really see them, or was it more like...
He described it as very real. They were helping him heal, but on an energetic level, which is wild. And get this, they seemed to be guiding him.
Guiding him how?
Toward his purpose, specifically as a writer. Almost like they were showing him different paths he could take, different storylines for his life.
And he could actually see these paths, right? Like different versions of his life playing out.
Exactly. And it gets even weirder. This idea of seeing potential futures, it pops up in other NDE accounts too. Yeah. It's like our idea of time, maybe it's not as fixed as we think.
Okay, now my brain's starting to hurt. But if we can choose our paths before we're even born, does that mean we're signing up for the tough stuff too?
Like, give me the financial struggle level, but make sure there's some awesome romance along the way.
Yeah. Is that how it works?
It's a wild thought. But it kind of reframes those challenges, doesn't it? Less about bad luck, more like opportunities to level up. Just like in a video game.
I do like that perspective. But okay, what about those of us who haven't had these crazy NDEs? Like no sneak peeks at our life's quest line. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to tap into that plan?
Right, right. And how does manifestation fit into all of this? Verk talks about that too.
He does. Can we actually, hack the simulation, manifest the life we want?
Okay, so Verk connects manifestation to the simulation, but not in a way you think.
How so?
He suggests we can influence things, but not by bending reality like some kind of Jedi mind trick. It's more about tapping into what's already possible.
Okay, I'm following. So, there are these preset paths, and we're choosing which one to follow.
You got it. He uses these terms, karmic engines and probability waves, which sound super complex.
Yeah, break those down for me. What are they exactly?
So think of karmic engines like the underlying forces. They shape our experiences based on our choices, our actions. It's the simulation's algorithm constantly calculating.
Calculating what?
Probabilities. It's presenting us with opportunities that align with our path, like a cosmic GPS guiding us.
And these probability waves, those are the different realities we could experience, depending on what our intentions.
You're getting it.
So it's not about magically conjuring things out of thin air. It's more like we're choosing from a menu of options that are already kind of there.
Exactly. Our karma, it's like setting up the menu based on our past choices.
Wow. Okay, now this is making me think about Free Guy again.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, Ryan Reynolds' character, he's an NPC who becomes self-aware. He starts making his own choices.
Right. And even though he's in this programmed world, he finds love. He finds his purpose. It's heartwarming.
Totally. But it makes you think, even within a simulation, maybe we have more free will than we realize. But what about when it feels like we're hitting a wall? No matter how much we try to manifest something, it's just not happening.
That's a tough one. And it happens to all of us. Verk talks about that too.
Yeah.
And you know what? He has a really interesting take on it.
Okay, I'm listening.
He suggests that those roadblocks, the things we can't seem to manifest, maybe they're not failures.
They're not.
Maybe, just maybe, they're the simulation's way of nudging us towards something better, something we hadn't even considered.
Like a cosmic redirect. I like that. But how do we know? What are the signs that we're on the wrong path, bumping up against our programming? Verk mentions these glitches in the simulation, right?
Yeah, glitches. And this is where things get really interesting. Verk says these glitches, they can show up in all sorts of ways.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Deja vu. That feeling that you've already lived through something. Or synchronicities.
Yeah.
You know, those meaningful coincidences that seem too perfect to be random.
Okay, yeah, I've had those. So weird.
Right. And this is where some people might disagree with him, but even paranormal stuff.
Whoa, are we talking ghosts and UFOs now?
He doesn't go that far. But he's more interested in those times when it feels like the fabric of reality, it kind of bends a little. Like maybe there's something more going on behind the scenes.
Okay, I can see that.
It's like, think about the Mandela effect.
Oh man, don't even get me started. The Berenstain Bears. Nelson Mandela. It's like our collective memory is glitching out.
Exactly. And Verk, he connects that to the possibility of alternate timelines.
Alternate timelines. Hold on, are we talking about parallel universes now? There are countless versions of ourselves out there living out different lives.
That's a wild idea.
It's like we're catching glimpses of these other realities, other versions of ourselves.
Right. And maybe, just maybe, some of those versions are more tuned in to the simulation than we are.
Okay, now that's a thought. Could they be trying to reach us, sending messages through the static, helping us wake up?
Now, wouldn't that be something? And it makes you think, if we're all connected in this simulated reality.
Well, maybe that's our intentions.
Maybe they're not so contained after all. Maybe they ripple out further than we realize.
Wow, that's a lot to process. But even if we never get that definitive proof that we're living in a simulation, just thinking about it, it changes things, doesn't it?
It really does.
So how do we actually use these ideas in our everyday lives, I mean?
Well, for starters, it can completely change how we look at challenges. Like, if life is a simulation, maybe those tough times, they're not personal failures.
They're not.
Maybe they're more like opportunities to level up, to learn and grow within the game.
Instead of asking, why me? It's more like, okay, what's the lesson here? What am I supposed to learn from this?
Exactly. Subtle shift, but so powerful. And it goes for our relationships, too.
Oh, how so?
Well, what if everyone around us, even those who seem like background characters, what if they're players, too?
With their own consciousness, their own journey.
Exactly. Suddenly, everyone's a little more interesting, a little more worthy of our compassion.
Because we're all in this together?
We are. Learning, growing, figuring things out as we go makes you look at those everyday interactions a little differently, doesn't it?
It does. Like that quick chat with the barista or someone letting you go first in traffic. What if those aren't just random happy accidents?
Right. What if those are like little winks from the universe?
Clues to guide us along.
I love that. It reminds me of what Verk said about synchronicities.
Those meaningful coincidences.
Exactly. He thinks those might be the simulation trying to get our attention. Like, hey, look closer. There's more to this than you think.
It's like the universe is whispering secrets to us if we just know how to listen.
Yes. Pay attention to those moments when everything just clicks.
When you think of someone and then they call you out of the blue.
It's wild. And it makes you wonder, what if there's even more to it than that?
Like what?
Well, we talked about the possibility of a programmer, right? A higher intelligence behind it all.
Right. Can we actually connect with that?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Verk, he suggests things like meditation, mindfulness.
Quieting the mind to hear that deeper wisdom.
Exactly. Tuning in to that channel that's always broadcasting, if we can just clear out the static. But it makes you wonder, is there a danger in trying to, like, hack the simulation?
Oh, good point. We see that in Free Guy, some characters trying to exploit the system.
Right. And it usually doesn't end well. I think it comes down to intention.
Like, are we trying to cheat the game or are we playing it with integrity?
Exactly. Trying to learn the rules to master the game from the inside out.
Not through some kind of cosmic cheat code.
Right. True mastery. It comes from understanding, from connecting with something bigger than ourselves.
Wow. This whole conversation has been a wild ride. It really makes you think, what if everyone started looking at life this way?
Wouldn't that be something? Approaching challenges with curiosity, treating each other with compassion.
Seeing the magic in the everyday.
It's a beautiful thought. And hey, even if we never know for sure if we're living in a simulation, isn't it amazing to consider?
It really is. It opens up so many possibilities. So to our listeners out there, as you go about your day, I want you to keep an eye out for those glitches in the matrix, those moments that make you question everything.
Those synchronicities, those whispers from the universe.
You might just surprise yourself with what you discover.